I had recorded a completely different video for you about that Ukrainian missile, which we'll leave for tomorrow, because right now we have breaking news, right? Breaking news. And here I ask you, please, to keep updating the information, because of course I can leave it right at the fixed point, but it just keeps gaining momentum. The humiliation that Vladimir Zelensky is suffering, along with the entire Kyiv regime in the Oval Office of the White House, is absolutely brutal. I'm going to upload it all in a single Telegram post because you'll see it in tomorrow's video, but I have to leave on a trip almost urgently. Don't worry, it's to record more. I hope the content is better. Anyway, I'll leave you the link to this post on Telegram, where you can see the long faces of the European leaders who were left there waiting like fools, and Trump didn't even come out to greet them. Also, Volodymyr Zelensky, there's a big difference between his photo with Vladimir Putin and with Zelensky. Once again, well, it's telling us a lot of things. Recently, I've said I'm editing the video and can't upload the one about the Ukrainian missile they just released. Currently, they're trying to show strength, but you'll see tomorrow it's not truly Ukrainian. Anyway, now it seems like they just don't care, as they would say in Latin America, and especially in Mexico. Because Donald Trump just said that he completely understands the argument that the ceasefire necessarily favors one of the sides because it can use it to regroup. So he doesn't see it as necessary to reach a preliminary agreement, and according to some sources, he even said that there is either an agreement or aid to Ukraine will almost end right here. And while he has been making statements like he loves the Russians and he loves the Ukrainians, he loves them equally, so he wants to end the conflict as soon as possible. It's an extremely consistent position. It's a position that the Western media will say tomorrow, well, that it aligns with the Kremlin's narrative, and practically that it's influenced by Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda about the Ukrainian conflict doesn't truly exist. That is, Russian propaganda, what they want to call Russian propaganda, is simply and plainly the very reality itself. So the only way now to end the conflict is for Ukraine to acknowledge the reality on the ground and try to agree on these terms. Is Crimea typically recovered, not to lose Donbass? It ended long ago. But above all, if you look there on Telegram in those photos, Zelensky's face said absolutely everything. Once again, they brought him to the Oval Office to face the most absolute humiliation. I mean, honestly, he looks like the typical kid who was severely bullied. Also, remember, the man is already very used to it. That European leaders, well, suck up to him, tell him how great he is, tell him how much he matters. He's doing well for Ukraine and must keep going. It's very important. I mean, they've really made things much worse, all these people, because from the beginning they put him in a place that wasn't his, in a place that doesn't belong to him, in a place that only exists in his mind, for those who wish to prolong the conflict and wage war against the Russian Federation to keep lining their pockets. A lot of things are going to happen here. The situation keeps changing. We'll see how it ends, and if I can, I'll give you another update, maybe a longer one, but for now, I'll leave this video here, just as it ends. These negotiations between Trump and Zelensky have basically ended this first part. Have they all sat down at the table, the Europeans, Zelensky, Trump? And it's precisely there where Trump has started to say that he understands that a ceasefire, well, it hasn't been accepted by one of the parties, referring to the Russian side. With this, he shatters the European narrative. Because what they've been telling Zelensky, what they've been forcing Zelensky to say, to demand, and well, in some way, to use to structure the Ukrainian media defense. It was the issue that a ceasefire is absolutely necessary before starting any kind of negotiations. But it turns out that it's not just that the Russian Federation won't go down that path. It turns out that the United States isn't willing to go down that path either. This adds to some images that tomorrow I can upload them in a short. I think they're absolutely glorious. I think it clearly shows what happened in these negotiations, which is an American military armored personnel carrier that the armed forces of the Russian Federation recovered from the front. They fixed it because it wouldn't start and was in poor condition. Of course, it was delivered to Ukraine by the United States. And now they have published a video in which that vehicle appears heading to the Ukrainian front to attack Ukrainian positions. It does so with both the Russian Federation and United States flags. The issue is so serious that even the presidential office commented, saying they don't understand how this happened. That Russia is using its vile propaganda and now is using the American flag, which it shouldn't do. But let's see them go to the front and actually confront the Russian soldiers who came up with that idea. To me, it seems extremely clever, absolutely brilliant. I don't know who created it, but it's just, in terms of media campaign, in terms of strength of message, but also in terms of purest ingenuity. I mean, keep sending. It's almost like that unit just needed to come out and say, please, are you still sending American weapons to Ukraine? It's working well for us, so we can later use them to attack Ukrainian positions. In short, Ukraine has tried to show strength and pride, I would say, with that new missile they've unveiled, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Right now, recording a last-minute video seemed more important. But all of this, with what Donald Trump has been saying, has been absolutely overshadowed. And now let's see how the Kyiv regime responds, because I think Zelensky isn't really in his right mind anymore. It's very hard for him to continue with this war, both in military terms and in terms of the media. No matter how much they're pushing him from Europe, trying to make him continue, trying to make him act and trying to get him to do things. So we'll see tomorrow. It's going to be very interesting. A very curious day of Western headlines talking about how Donald Trump has accepted Russian propaganda and how the Kremlin has taken over Trump's mind. But does Trump actually want a deal? And does he realize Russia can't just accept any terms? And I think we already talked about that at some point. I think he also understands that he doesn't have too many levers of pressure against the Federation. That Nobel Peace Prize winner needs to actually earn it. From here on, please leave in the comments how the negotiations end so we can discuss it practically live and in real time. And tomorrow we'll be back with maybe this little analysis. And above all, with the topic of the Ukrainian missile, which also has a point. I was recording it and it got cut off with that Ukrainian missile, which also has some very interesting points. Let's start with the trip.